Good morning, judges and educators. My name is Firdaus Adam Friska Putra from University of Dinamika, Motion 2. So we as the opposition team believe that we have some rebuttals to come with because the government did not state their opinion properly based on facts. So I believe the government team mentioned about democracy by taking others' right to protect the real democracy, people's right, in order to not harm them. So basically, they failed to define democracy by its extent, because it all starts by delivering their opinion without getting a fear of getting discriminated. They can express their emotions freely. That is democracy. If they're taking people's rights, it's even worse. It's a triplet the worst of the original democracy defined. So they also used really nonsense rational measurements, which I will bring on the reasoning that I've already wrote. So the government stated that their mechanism will only allow each person to take the test every 5 years. If you failed, you are not able to vote. You have to wait for the next 5 years to be able to vote again. By this, the government has taken 5 years of freedom to the citizens to actually vote for their president, because they have at least 3 measurements that they came up with. So one is they are using car tests. Let's say you don't graduate the car simulation test, you will not be able to drive because you might harm the other drivers because you are considered that you are not eligible of driving a car. But the problem is that you cannot compare car driving tests with individual tests of political, because they are both different condition and for different field jobs. And the second one is that they use harm as their backup to take people's right, because people might get driven by ad campaigns that they do not actually know who to vote, because they don't know, as a human being, they don't know what is democracy principles. But they mention democracy principles, but they failed to define democracy at the first extent. Means they already failed the whole argument because their definition doesn't suit the actual fact or definition. So you can, the government team used car tests to define whether someone's eligible to vote, but in the end, the reasoning that whether or not they are completed the test or not, and they still get driven or not by ad campaigns or their friends, it doesn't matter. So the evidence is that the Indonesian people spend their education at least to the extent of 17 to 18 years from primary school, junior high school, and senior high school. It's a government job to create a curriculum to deliver the nationality aspect from the subject called PKN, Pendidikan Kewarganegaraan. And since they mention a lot about democracy and people actually learn about government jobs and job tests, so is the Pancasila, everything, national aspect should be delivered through PKN. But if in the end they need to take the voting test again to determine if they're completely able and legitimate, they're smart enough to vote for a president, I mean, for the past 18 years, they learned PKN for nothing. And back to the original status quo of Indonesia, that Indonesia is a democracy country, freedom of living and delivering opinions. So, they also, in the link back, the government's statement about democracy principles failed to define their whole argument about voting freely based on their democracy principles that they brought up at the first place. And by ad campaigns, like, let's take this as an example of the case, taking other people's right because they are not smart enough to vote for a president. Meanwhile, only the smart ones are able to vote, means that they can get control. The smart people can get framed into voting on one side that majority of the ineligible people can vote with. And they said that by taking the test, you are, by default, democracy means you are able to vote, express opinions, but in Indonesia, the status quo, you have HAM inside of everybody who got birth in the country. With HAM, you are also getting HAM protection right. You're protected by the law. But if Indonesia were to take that own law by taking their rights and removing democracy out of its living state, means it is futile in the end, because in the end they cannot even vote because they are not good enough. Like, imagine there are some cases that I will bring, like, let's say majority of the people doesn't pass the test, means there's only a minority of people who will be able to vote, which means the minority also can control, ruining all the voting qualities of the election. And then the second one is the equal majority and minority. There's no majority, there's minority, everyone is equal, and they're all voting based on their freedom of expressing their opinions or on who to choose, means they're all already covered in democracy. But even if they're equal, and it's still only the real democracy that the government have brought before, means it is still not fair, because as if you want to be fair, the country is a democracy country itself. So you have to really go full democracy, otherwise just put democracy off the map. So yeah, let's take the link back. So the government have failed everything about democracy because they brought democracy principles in this argument. So in the end, whether or not people pass the test or not, and they still get driven by ad campaigns or not, it all depends on democracy. So every vote only matters with democracy, because that's what the argument got started about with. We as the opposition team believe that we should not give tests to people because they are not eligible to vote. Thank you, judges.